Last week we learned to love ourselves. Let's get into the wrecking or rapping section. All right, now vote. Wrecking or rapping, you must choose one.
It had a little Elvis vibe to it.
Oh, that's nice.
I didn't know that was a thing. I thought that was the intro.
I'm a
Like, if that was the full thing, I think I have to vote Wrecking.
No, it was like the intro to Hound
We
Dog.
got a wreck.
I think this is trying harder and harder every week to get a Wrecking. Like, he wants us to have opinions on things.
Yeah. It would be helpful on a podcast if you had opinions. All right.
Well,
Flizza.
I'm back.
Hey,
everybody.
yeah. Well, first, did you have a vote on wrecking or rapping?
Well, it's not rapping because you didn't rap, so I guess it's wrecking.
Oh, deuces! We got the
Tried.
double wreck.
He really wanted a wreck.
Well, yeah. So the whole thing with that would just end with goals is like it's not important what the goal is, but it's like I'm not getting this thing, which is wrecking. So now that's the goal. I'm more concerned with that. Anyway, Flizzo was gone last week. Did you have any thoughts or feelings that you wanted to send out? We sent our T's and P's.
T's and P's? No.
Oh, it was just a boring episode. How do you feel about being a king and a priest? Will you accept the crown and staff?
I don't think I would want to be a king or a priest, actually.
Okay, I was going to say, Chris would be a king, I'm a jester, and Floyd's a priest, apparently.
Being a priest, I more accept being a priest than being a king. Being a priest, it's more like consulting, and then being a king is more of just commanding.
I started listening to the Chronicles of Narnia on audiobook while I was mowing today. As I was telling you earlier, I did a hard day of labor today. Been mowing for hours, but only did about a third of my yard. And the Chronicles of Narnia, there's the evil... Well, it's not the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe yet, which I was thrown off by. There's this evil queen, and she talks about how her people were there to be used by her in war, and that when she was done with them, their purpose was to just be cast away. So that's just one of the, I don't know, perks of royalty, but the crown is heavy to wear, so I could understand. Yeah,
if you're royalty, I feel like you view people like they are numbers in a sense, or like they're resources. But if you're a priest, well, technically, you should view them like a flock of sheep or something, where they are part of your existence, and you need to tend to them and care for them and everything.
Yeah, this is getting me all hyped up to read some Bible. If you guys would allow me the pleasure, this week I've pulled up 1 Corinthians 15, verses 1 through 15. Moreover, brethren, I declare unto you the gospel which I preached unto you, which also ye have received, and wherein ye stand, by which also ye are saved. If ye keep in memory what I preached unto you, unless ye have believed in vain. For I delivered unto you first of all that which I also received, how that Christ died for our sins according to the Scriptures, and that he was buried, and that he rose again the third day according to the Scriptures. One big thing I wanted to note on that was the mentioning of Scriptures. And during our Bible study, we discussed what were the Scriptures of their time?
Of whose time?
The one who's writing that, Corinthians.
No, wouldn't that be, I guess, the Old Testament or like the Hebrew Bible type, the Torah? Would that be?
They would be studying? That could be, I guess.
Well, I mean, they would have been Jewish.
It goes back to Shakespeare and the idea of we can't take so-and-so's word for it, and that there is some sort of scripture. I mean, we now have the gospel as it declares to us, but this need And that's why I think God is the simplest anchor. Last week we talked about having an anchor that's just like a safe spot that you branch off of, and that way, like putting God as your anchor is the way to live, because anything else you're gonna get corrupted by.
Do you think people don't get corrupted by God? Or not God, but
Ooh,
corrupted by
yeah.
the
Um,
the
well, I
idea
guess
of
they become false
that?
prophets then, right? They're preaching, but they've, I guess, injected their ego into it.
Yes.
Yeah.
The, I've seen that a couple times. Well, there's people that out now that are clearly corrupted and preaching gospel, very clear as day.
Do you think
Be,
like that they're preaching good gospel? And so it's like, how can you be corrupted and preach good gospel, or are they corrupted and preaching something else?
they can preach gospel and then not live by that
Yeah.
term, not live by the terms. Like I take offense to mega churches, for example. Like they are preaching all of this, and a lot of those leaders, or a few of those leaders, are not living the lifestyle that they are preaching.
Is that how you would live as a priest? That you would live what you preach?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't live a life of luxury because clearly there's suffering and stuff, and you wouldn't want to have that status when there's all the suffering in the world. But I mean, you can live a moderate lifestyle, preach a moderate lifestyle, and then you know broadcast that out to the world. But having private jets and Ferraris seems kind of weird.
Alex, do you have any thoughts on this? Are you falling asleep? Are you texting? Mr. So-and-so, can I see that phone?
Well, I wasn't texting. I was looking up what a priest would transfer over to as a D&D class.
Cleric?
Yeah, so apparently, well, because I could see Floyd being a Matt Hardy.
Yeah, that's my first thought with them.
I could see Floyd being a cleric. I could see that he has the.
So I was often a paladin. Flizzo, do you feel like you did choose cleric, or have you ever considered your D&D class?
I've never looked into it, never considered it. So a paladin would be like a holy warrior, right?
Yeah. It's usually
Crusader
like
type,
there's a warrior, there's a cleric, and the paladin is in between.
like a crusader.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I never considered myself that.
How do you not just have a built-in sort of D&D class that you use to
I've
represent your life?
Yeah, I mean,
I've
who do you
never
think you
played
would be
D&D.
if you were living in the medieval ages right now? Yeah, moving on. I think we've got
Listen.
Shakespeare ready. What I wanted to talk about from last time was that there's no throwaway lines, was what I said, and Alex had a problem with it. And the way I wanted to solve that was that I'm not taking this person's word for it, because we are going through Shakespeare line by line, play by play, verse by verse. And that was when I talked before about the meta levels, small, medium, large. Also, did you know Shakespeare has over 150 sonnets?
I didn't know that actually.
Oh,
What's the difference between a sonnet and a play?
I think a sonnet's
Very
a
short.
song. Yeah,
A
probably
sonnet
just a page.
is like a poem, essentially, in like iambic pentameter and stuff like that.
Yeah, it might all be written in iambic pentameter, but honestly, that's probably a dead language that anyone who says they know what it is just pretending.
Well, it's just a rhyming scheme.
What I do know is that this is a reading of Amelia's line from Act 3, Scene 4. So she's talking about jealousy. So Amelia is Desdemona's maiden, and Desdemona is the lady friend of Othello. And Amelia here is talking about how Othello is kind of going mad because he's becoming jealous. And so she's talking about jealousy. but jealous souls will not be answered to. They are not ever jealous for the cause, but jealous for they are jealous. 'Tis a monster, begot upon itself, born on itself. If you don't know, begot or beget means like to bring forth. Like my mom begot me. But so jealousy begot upon itself, born onto itself. That's one line that's short and sweet. Do you like that, Alex?
I mean, it's not throwaway. I mean, it could be
There are
if you.
no throwaway lines, good sir.
I don't know, man. I really feel like there's a lot of filler that people provide into the world for no reason.
Well, I had also thought that with that, what you said of a lot of going around the block to cross the street, at a certain point, if you're just saying, this is big, it's really big, it's bigger than really big, that gets boring and we need new words to describe things. And here we are, I don't know, a couple hundred years, maybe thousands of years into the language, this guy created those more complicated words, and we're not living up to the standard.
Well, there's like being direct, and then there's being overly descriptive.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Alex is more talking about being overly descriptive of something. Like he's being
Yes, yeah.
Shakespeare's very, very descriptive, which I don't think is a bad thing, but in this day and age, seems like you're just rambling because everybody's short and to the point.
That's another problem that I encounter. So how to combine those two, how to have great art and enlightening humanity when you only have 3-second attention span.
That you just be short and to the point. That's why, like, if you look at certain shows or something like that, people look at the writers and they listen to the dialogue and they're like, nobody talks like that. But they're being overly descriptive. They're not rambling and they're not going on, but they're being overly descriptive. And people don't like it because people don't talk like that anymore. Honestly, they're more to the point. Like, they don't describe how the day looks and how the sunrise made them feel like they were alive. They just say, "Oh yeah, the sun rose today. I saw it," and then they move on.
Or do they not even talk to each other? How do you guys encounter coworkers? Do you have water cooler talk?
I don't think we have water cooler talk. We have discussions and stuff like that, but it's not as. Sometimes it's drawn out because there's often times where we have long periods of time working together, so things were drawn out. You could have a longer conversation. So, but as far as like water cooler talk, where it's like, all right, I need to talk about something in 5 minutes, that doesn't really happen.
I hate fake sincerity, where people are like, "Oh, how are you?" It's not like they're just saying the words to say the words.
I think
small talk.
okay, so this is a
Yeah,
thing
no,
that we need
I
to
don't do
work
'em.
on for you though is to I don't know, expand that comfort zone with that sort of thing, because they do mean what, or at least I think most people do. They mean what they're saying, in that they're just trying to have a gradual conversation to like not start anything. And you might be like shaking them in the elevator. Do you really mean how's the weather today? Awful rainy. What is that? I didn't bring an umbrella. Is that what you're trying to say to me?
Yeah, I'm completely fine with that. That's how life should be. Like,
Yeah, but
No.
it's like,
there's people that they say, "Hey, how are you doing?" Right? And you're like, "I'm fine." And you get that throwaway line, "Oh, I'm fine." But sometimes they really want to know, like, "Hey, how's things going? How are
yeah, but
the
I feel
how's
like
the
those
wife?
would be
How's the kids?"
specific people that actually you've like had those conversations with. Like, you know, how, like when you're like out and about and someone goes, "Hey, how's it going?" And you're like, "Oh, good. How are yourself?" Like, none of that needed to exist.
Yeah, but I've had that conversation with so many people, right? Where it sounds like a throwaway conversation, but then you have it with somebody, and then you say, "Screw it, I'm gonna say what actually is going on," and then you continue that conversation with that person over and over and over again, and you have a deeper connection with that person.
Yeah, well,
I
because
think it's.
that would
I
be
think there's
one
so
of
many
those
people
people.
putting that line out there
This is
that
what I'm talking about.
eventually,
Like,
if you grab
with
it,
belief.
yeah, exactly. Like if you grab it and say, "Hey, I'm going to tell you what's going on," they might just latch onto that, and you develop a new friend, a
I mean, I
closer
know
friend.
you, Alex, are going to scare a lot of people to begin with, but there'll be that one in so many.
I mean,
And
that does define me
try
pretty
to avoid
specifically.
closed off spaces when you're releasing your brain on somebody.
When I get into an elevator, I usually do back into the far corner.
Yeah, well, to protect your head, right?
No, what you have to do is you got to stand at the front of the elevator and
Yeah,
face
have
the
you ever
back.
done that?
Yeah, I
Me?
People are
always
very
ask people,
uncomfortable.
hey, what number?
Yeah.
What number? And I do the number. I take control of the elevator.
I mean, okay, but like at cons and stuff, when I'm getting into a full elevator, I'm not going to do that weird spin. So I'll just like stand there and like stare at people because it's like, oh, this is how I am now.
What do you do with your
How are you
People get
hands?
dressed, though?
uncomfortable. I oof.
XYZ?
I mean, most of my con pants don't have zippers.
That's nice. Luxury.
None of my pirate pants, none of my
Con
like
pants,
most cosplay pants
convention
don't have
for
zippers.
those that don't know.
So you have like a whole set of convention pants, and
Well, I
zippers
mean,
aren't
I
on the
I
menu.
have at least 2 pirate outfits,
Okay.
and then
What
I
about your
have like,
cowboy
well,
outfits?
my cowboy outfit is jeans. Like, of course that is zippers. Like,
Of course, the
Well,
cowboy outfits don't count.
Cowboy
they
jeans didn't have zippers. Didn't they have button
my
flies?
I know I'm on Chris. The
Mm,
cowboy outfit doesn't count because that's everyday wear.
but button flies are nice. I was going to say that the ACUs are 4 buttons, so if you don't wear underwear, it's easy to pee.
Yeah, I was gonna say, aren't you
What?
part of the group of people that have scorched their nether regions because
Oh,
button flies get hot?
I guess I've probably told that story just in like basic training. I went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, but of course people go to Texas. And well, I also went to Benning. I was just split ops, but that's another story because Benning is the home of the infantry. But that name is now changing. We'd be out on the firing range, and there's these big metal circles. Oh, they cover a foxhole. So one of the ways you can shoot is standing in the foxhole, and you'd put the rifle on bags. But so when you lay down in the prone position, you drop that metal plate, and it's in 130 degrees sun all day, and then somebody lays down on that. The guys have gotten burned.
Okay.
No
Yeah,
I
females
thought
needed.
you meant
something.
the buttons from the fly were
Oh,
Well, yeah, the
literally
buttons
doing
from
it.
the fly get
Yeah,
warm
but
from the
I
think
mean,
piece
they
of
if you're
heat.
metal,
No, I
standing
and
on
think I
something
think they're
that's
heating up
metal,
on the metal. No, they're laying
yeah, that
down
makes
on it.
sense. I thought it was just in general the buttons were
that'd be a
heating up
weird
and
way
like
of
burning
having to
their
walk into
crotch.
the sun as you go down the street. You're just like
On a side note,
crotch
they're changing
first.
Fort Benning.
Yeah, I don't know what it's called. I can't keep up with all the names these kids got
Is it
these
one of those
days.
like who is it Benning? I guess a Confederate general
Well,
or something.
I don't know. That's a thing that's worth a look up, but I
When I was
I would probably
I
get
was
too
at
distracted.
McClellan, and they were complaining about name changes back then, and they were like, "Oh, they're changing everything," and blah blah blah. But
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't really mind at the end of the day because I'd also say that when I was in the infantry, there were no women allowed. So it was a completely different experience because I remember when we were in Iraq that a female MP's military police, came and stayed with us for, I don't know, a week. And we had to build a little shed that she had access to a lock on the inside that she could protect herself, but also like that she would sleep in her own safe little spot. But now it's just different. But I also think the infantry, it's hard to say. I think in one hand they're not really needed anymore because we have drones, and on the other hand they'll always be needed because it's the only real human that's like, I don't know, willing to hit another
What's
person
on the
further
ground?
than like the disconnect of a trigger and internet, whatever.
Right. You don't want all of your fighting force being out of like Las Vegas on like a
Yeah.
remote
And
server.
But
it's all
if you've
people that
watched
have
the
never
RoboCop
stood out of a chair.
reboot, where we replace humans with robots,
Okay.
I mean
Yeah,
that's the
but
beginning of the
if you
RoboCop
don't
reboot.
say
Is they're
you
in
have
like
people willing to put their self forward for their cause, then
Because I
you're
think
not gonna. People aren't gonna believe that you're
yeah, like a
willing to
conquering
do anything.
also sort of means that there are people that now live there. So if you just like send in robots and be like, okay, we've conquered you, we're still
You need
our
occupying
own.
force. Yeah. You can't just kind of if you show up and then leave, then everybody's like, oh, well, they're gone.
Yeah, now we can go back to our old way. If they're not going to be
if you
checked.
never show up and they're like, well, I think they're whatever. Let's just go back to.
Or if you have
our
constant
crazy
cameras, but
ways.
you never enforce your new rules, then what does it matter?
Yeah. So
by risk
yes, you
rules,
need
you
boots
have
on
to
the
take
ground.
the one territory to get to the next territory.
And you have to
So
leave.
even if you don't
you have to
stay
leave
there,
a
you have to
person there.
leave.
Yeah.
Yeah,
one.
but if
Well,
you
just
if
one.
you have an occupying,
but you
if
still
you have a
yeah. How many
you
does
take
that
a
represent?
territory and need to move to the next territory, you have your backing force occupying that territory while you're advancing. You're not
Yeah,
just
but
like
then you
leaving it
advanced out of
behind.
it, and you're just like, it's there.
No, but you
Some
have
guys
another
there.
force coming behind you. You have your
You don't
your
always have to, Joe. I mean, we play Risk very differently.
well, that's a risk. But I'm saying you have like your resupply people coming in that.
That's
On
why you
risk-
keep the
on risk
place, is so you have it
strategy.
for a chain.
On risk strategy, I'm going to move forward into the history section. I'm currently reading This is the Way of Wealth by Ben Franklin. This served as an introduction to the book, I guess, that was Poor Richard's Almanac. So Poor Richard's Almanac was basically a newspaper column. Franklin owned a newspaper, and even before he owned one, he was writing columns. I guess, especially at his time, there just wasn't a lot of writers. But I think it also speaks to Franklin speaks to the idea of just do a thing, and you keep doing it, you get better. Now you're the person that does that thing. So that's why he's like a good person to just study and with his autobiography. But this is an introduction to the book that was then made of Poor Richard's Almanac, which is a collection of these columns that he wrote for newspapers. And in this reading, he's going to mention two things. And in the introduction, he's playing a character of like some priest, Father Abraham, stood up and replied, because all the people are gathered like, grumble, grumble, grumble. And Father Abraham stands up and says, friends, says he, the taxes are indeed very heavy, and if those laid on by the government were the only ones we had to pay, we might more easily discharge them. But we have many others, and much more grievous to some of us. We are taxed twice by our idleness, 3 times as much by our pride, 4 times as much by our folly. And from these taxes the commissioners cannot ease or deliver us by allowing an abatement. However, let us hearken to good advice, and something may be done for us. God helps them that helps themselves, as Poor Richard says. So there were two in there. One was about the taxes of idleness, pride, and folly. And the other is of a Poor Richard saying is God helps them that helps themselves.
Don't buy stuff.
Okay. What's that one from?
So
Or
no.
Where do you get that?
If you look at that, if you listen to it, pride or idle is
Pride, folly.
taxing.
Yeah, idle, pride, folly.
So if you're proud, you want to project yourself and look,
display your wealth.
Display your wealth. So you're going to get taxed on that, right? Because you're buying stuff, so you're going to get taxed. So you're getting taxed again because you're buying stuff.
You're made poorer because of your ego.
Yeah. If you didn't need to boast your wealth, then you're not going to get taxed on that stuff because you already have stuff, so you don't need to buy more things. In my opinion on what that is.
And then the other is God helps them that helps themselves.
Yeah.
I have a parable.
So that's farming, right?
Sure. How do you see that?
So if you're in terms of not being taxed again, so if you're growing your own food, if you're farming your own,
Certainly not idle.
yeah, if you're farming your own like eggs and milk and bacon and whatever, then you're not being taxed on that, and you're being helped by you helping yourself. If if I want to put
Here,
that out
here.
there.
Alex, anything on Poor Richard or Father
No,
Abraham?
I just
Also, Poor
is that
Richard and Father Abraham are both names that Ben Franklin used. So that's interesting, I guess. They like to
but so he
create these
says
characters.
trolling the king though.
You want to talk about trolling the king?
Isn't that what Franklin's doing then? By
How's
being
that
poor
trolling the
Richard,
king?
King Richard.
No. Oh, it could be. I could see that. Yeah, that could make sense. But I think Richard is also probably a popular king name. So I don't
He
know if
wasn't.
King
It
at
wasn't
the
King
time.
Richard. It was King George at the time. I thought.
At the
Probably that
time, but
sounds
I mean,
about.
there's
But yeah,
still
that
like
could just be the twist on this. Poor Richard is the opposite of King Richard. I could see that. But I think it's
right,
more of like uh, you need to hear somebody else saying that Poor Richard is good, and Poor Richard also needs to be someone else than Ben Franklin, because Ben, like when he was alive, Ben Franklin, and you're going to say, oh, he doesn't have anything to say. But Poor Richard, I've been reading him for a while, and I tend to agree.
So if Elon Musk had a pseudonym, you'd be like,
Which might
"Oh, this
be
guy sounds
one.
pretty good."
I
But
mean,
if
there
Elon
might
Musk
be
said it, you're like
a
that
person
freaking
out there
idiot.
that's not a real person that Elon Musk created to make himself like his other ideas sound better.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't it be a good reason to buy Twitter so that you always control the media that's going to judge every product you put out?
Would it be?
I don't know, but we could talk about kings. I After the last episode, and Alex didn't like being a king. I brought up to him that he was going to cosplay as Kingpin from Spider-Man, and so I was like,
But I'm
dressing as
retired.
the king. Alex said, in a costume way, is a troll or a toll of the jester. And you meant to say troll, or you meant to say
I'm going to say tool. I think I just
tool?
did two L's instead of two O's.
So he
Oh,
said
It was
tool,
in a
or
text message.
he
Like
said
I typed
toll.
it to Chris and
I
to double
thought he
check
might
what I
have meant
said.
troll. He meant tool. And that was another point I wanted to bring up on that, is just the errors found in communication, to where people, what I said about, like, you need to believe, and with those tiny conversations, you need to believe that this person has good intentions, because there's going to be errors between the way you communicate, and you just have to assume that they're trying to be a good person, so that then you try and be a good person. And this can be displayed in, there's this game called Prisoner's Dilemma, and there was a computer program called Tit for Tat that won. Do you guys know what Prisoner's Dilemma is? Or is any of this ring any bells?
I mean, it sounds familiar, but I'm
Okay.
not
The
100%.
idea is two separate parties will decide on their own. They can't talk. So the idea is that two prisoners were trying to break out, and they got caught, and now they're being investigated separately. And they say, if you rat on your friend, we'll give you a deal. But if neither of you rat, then you're both not going to make it, and etc. But or you could rat on your friend, blah blah blah. There was a competition between all these different programs. How do you win this game? And the best way that you win the game of trust is you tit for tat. You start off trusting, and then if the other party breaks your trust, then you break the trust, and then from then on, you just do what the other party does. Tit for tat. So that was on the error of communications and why the importance of trusting to begin with. But Alex was talking about that dressing as a gesture is a tool,
Well, dressing it, yeah,
or dressing as a king is a tool of the gesture.
portraying the king is a tool of the jester. I mean, it also works as a toll too, because I guess it depends on how you take on the responsibility of being the jester.
And it works as a
Like,
troll because you're trolling the king.
yeah. I mean, like all verbiage works in this situation.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So
that's the whole thing. That like,
who are you
who am
trolling
I
with your
trolling?
outfit today? Or who? What are you using with the tool?
In that technically in that world, I'm actually trolling you then.
I guess so. Well, now the tables are about to turn. I just remembered that you had a book report due today and that you're going to have to give a presentation in front of the class. I hope you've prepared your 3x5 note cards and your poster board.
As I told you, man, I don't write things down as an adult.
All right. Well, would you like to talk about Of Mice and Men now, or do you have other things going on?
I guess we can stay on topic and then switch if we need to. So I read it after the first conversation we had about taking a page a day, because then I was like, dude, if I don't read this before next podcast, everyone's gonna start to just think I'm illiterate. Following the conversation we just had where I mess up the words toll and tool, so yeah, fun times. But so I finished it out there and then I watched the movie. The Gary Sinise version. I don't think there's another movie version. I know there's play versions, but I couldn't find any, at least to stream.
And what'd you think?
I mean, I did not like the very last line of the book.
Which is?
It goes so like how
this would be a great
the
time
whole
for
thing
notes,
ends.
by the way.
No, but like so how the whole thing ends, like the tell me about the rabbits by the river, yada yada. But the very last line, it just goes to this other guy and goes, "What's up with those two?" And then the book ends, and you're like, "What?" Like you just took us out of that scene to just be like, life goes on, and it's like, yeah, but like.
But what was the title of the book?
Yeah, but like that is no.
What does the saying refer to? Best laid plans of mice and men. So it's this idea that you'll have all this stuff going on. Your whole life might have been an uphill battle trying to carry Lenny through these places, and you're just trying to make enough money to get your own little piece of earth. And in the end, what's going on with those two? But like, no one else cares about your story.
Yeah, but I care about Lenny.
Well, look, God cares about your story, and that's why you should pick up your crown and staff and be who was Gary Sinise's character?
He's George.
George. Be the George that just, does what he needs to do, does the right thing. He's trying to get along, and darn it, well, a man should shoot his own dog, and he did it. And that's what we look up to in George.
His own dog.
I feel like Chris either just reread the book himself or just like got all these crib notes. He's like, I got to make sure to touch on these points.
Or he just remembered.
Saw my notes. What are you talking about? You're the one that read the book. You're the one that's supposed to have the notes.
I don't take notes. I shoot from the hip.
What is in my notes is, when was the last time you read a book before this one? Like finished a book.
I just read a graphic novel.
Okay.
Does that count as a book?
Why would it not? It's words and pages.
What do you think about that? Because the other thing I said was that you read one chapter a day, about 20 pages a day, that you set that goal. 20 pages a day is not insignificant. So what do you think about that? Like, I just did that thing.
I in comparison to people that really read, it's almost non-existent.
Okay. All right. This is what we're going to get into then. The time that this guy, so I have this book about this terrible deployment, and this guy's telling me that like all the awful stuff that happens to me, and he shows me his Purple Heart. He's like, "What do you think of that?" And I'm like, "I'm a cherry private. I don't say anything basically." But then he says, "But it's not as bad because some people lost a limb or something." And with that, I realized that this is a competition to the grave. You don't win unless you lose everything. And so that's why we need to flip the script and stop saying like, I can't, and start saying I am. And that idea was also described to me as discounting the good, that a good thing happens and you say, oh yeah, but that's supposed to happen. Or I did that because of someone else. You make up a reason to why the good thing isn't good. You've read more books than us. That's a good accomplishment. Congratulations.
Yeah, but you're literally reading 3 books right now.
You can't even read. I'm reading 3 books, but it's different. But I'm reading a page a day or 2 pages a day because that
Of
was
three
my
different books at a
competition
time.
was, okay, Alex is reading a page a day. I need to read 2 pages a day. I am not going to lose. But then I did.
Yeah,
And that's
so
best
I'm just
laid
saying,
plans
but
of
by
mice
the
and men.
same argument that you're making that you shouldn't use things in comparison and do things because of other people, you just said your driving goal of what you were doing was that I was doing something different.
Yeah, but I'm just looking for any goal, just like with the
Or
wrecking thing.
competition.
Yeah, just anything that's going on. Like, oh, I see this thing. How, like I said, always trying to improve. I see this thing. How can I improve? Toil the
I don't
soil.
know. See, I guess
God
I
helps
spend my
those
time
that
doing
help
weird little
themselves.
hobbies.
Did you say I need hobbies or you need?
No, I spend my time doing weird little hobbies like modeling
Well, yeah, we could talk about
gargoyles
that
and
kingpin modeling. Like I said, that was an interesting.
well, I mean that's my first what are those Funko Pops that I've had to change.
So this is your
So
first
I my
remodeling.
original well no, so
Maybe
my
on.
Struggling for
original
30 seconds.
base
I'll be right back. I can still hear you.
Let's just
Keep
see.
talking.
my original Funko Pop was I found a Funko Pop that actually looked like me. Like the guy didn't have any hair, but the beard and like but it's from Money Heist, so he has like an name or something. So I had to get that out of his hands, and then like I painted him, and then from there I added like hair to one. So I got modeled more than one Funko Pop, but this one was because that's the outfit I'm gonna wear. I was like, all right, well let me make a Funko Pop that dresses like that, so it's an event Funko Pop. But I want to do another one to model my current attire. So I have to model a hoodie onto it, like so I have to use a bunch of green stuff, and
Have
the
you
hair part's
researched
not
what you're
that
going
big.
to use yet?
Well, green stuff is the name of the product.
Oh, oh,
It is
good, good for green stuff.
it is I mean this isn't the packaging, but it is a blue and a yellow putty that when you mix together becomes green and then hardens. It's a modeling play, I guess.
So, do you think that making Funko Pops is a lesser art than a painting?
I mean, I would say so because I feel painting is a much harder skill set.
Why aren't they? Why aren't they
Because
all
I
the
feel
same?
like anyone can just model and paint like models. That's a lot.
I'm saying
Like,
anybody can paint. That were, I mean, this is this.
I
I
don't
say
feel
this
so. I
is an
feel like
unfinished painting.
painting is
But even
different.
those good ones, and that's like if you guys wanted to, I told you guys to do that drawing book. I bet nobody did. But if you wanted to, you could get on that level even faster than me because I could help you get there.
Yeah, but like I mean, like
They're all
there's
just
a difference
skills.
in yeah, but I mean, I feel like painting is a different skill set compared to modeling, whereas like this is a
He's
whole different thing than me making a Funko Pop.
no,
So, did you
that's
paint that?
I painted that. That's a
Oh, really?
Bob Ross. So that's literally I don't know, paint by numbers, but just follow along with what the guy's doing on the screen.
So, when you model, do you paint by numbers type, like a type situation, or you?
Uh, and I would say I do because currently the models that I play are all copyright like Star Wars or Marvel, so I'm painting them in the predestined colors and things.
Okay. So, if you painted a painting that was already done, like a Bob Ross type situation,
Mm.
do you consider that in the same level as painting a model?
Because I would feel like painting on canvas is harder.
But
How
why?
so? But
Because
you have
it's
instructions on
flat.
where to put it.
Two
I
dimensional
don't,
versus
yeah,
three. One
but
whole less
the
dimension.
texture's different, and the brushes are different. The paint's like it's a different
Hey, quick
medium.
question. Do you guys measure in numbers? And that's why math is important. If words are the way we measure ideas, numbers are how we measure the physical plane. And plane, I mean 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional. So this jumps us into
What else
the
would you
math
measure in?
section. What's that? Hey, can you
What else is there
use these
outside of
numbers
numbers?
to equal 24?
Yeah,
Can you
what's
see
the
the
one closest to your head? Is that
4?
a 4 or a 1?
Yeah, the numbers for our listeners are 8, 4, 4, 2. So the concept of this game, 24, is that you can add, subtract, divide, and multiply all these numbers by each other, and the goal is to get 24. Have you guys figured it out yet? I mean, there's probably multiple ways. So the easiest way I would do it, I might have messed it up. No, I think I got it. 4 plus 4 equals 8. 8 times 2 is 16. 16 plus 8 is 24. So the reason I like 24 is because, well, the whole point of the number is that there's so many combinations that you can come across to get to 24. And that's what that game is. Just run through these combinations, keep trying new combinations. I think at least it's a brute force way. And did you guys have any interest when I talked about counting cards or memory tricks like chunking? Or are you familiar with that
So
word?
I'm familiar with that stuff, and I know I can't do it.
What? How do you know? What does that mean?
So like counting cards, I fully understand the concept of counting cards.
So I'm going to
I've
talk about
played
one that's
blackjack.
different than another, but then the popular method. But what was the method? Did you do the plus one minus one method?
Whatever methods I tried several different ones. I can't count them. I just can't keep track of stuff in my head like that.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't work.
How do you
I
feel
can
with the
keep track of other
24?
numbers, but not 24. Not mentally. Like if I could write it down,
No,
I
I
could
mean the
easily do
game
it.
we just played. Is that what you mean? Like it'd be
Yeah, yeah.
easier if you wrote it down.
If I could write it down and figure it out, I could do it. But for some reason, with numbers in the cloud, so to speak,
Alex, do
they
you have
just
a
get
similar
lost.
feeling with
I mean, I felt
keeping things
24
in your
is not
head?
bad because it's minimal numbers. I think like it's like playing Sudoku. I've seen people do that thing where they're like, oh, if I write the number, like I don't know how to do middle numbers. I just can do 1 through 9 in my head and hold places and like that. But like any sort of advanced math, I don't think I could just do in my head.
So the point of chunking is to take a longer series, and then you remember like one code word basically. And then I think this is how people will memorize like a pi to 100 decimals. What you end up doing is you basically make a sentence, but each word has different values, and then that's how you end up remembering as a mnemonic device is what they're called. The way that I learn to count cards. It doesn't really work for casinos that have multiple decks, but you envision a room. But I could understand if you can't create that physical space in your head, and you envision a room and each number becomes an item in that room. And so when there's 4 of that item, you're keeping track of them. But that way you're visualizing a room rather than ever thinking of numbers. That's just some notes I had.
I feel like that's more of that left brain, right brain stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas like some
Well,
people
this
can do a
this
plus
was the
minus,
math
whereas other people have to do
section.
image. I feel like there's more science than math.
Where was the
Nah,
science? What was my
that's more math.
hypothesis?
Well, they're
The
both intertwined though. Math and
Yeah,
science
I
are.
mean, science, math is a science, but like,
Well, that was all I had. You guys about ready to bring this puppy home, or you just want to chill out and have conversations,
oh
dude?
yeah, Wolfman Chris.
With Wolfman Chris. How? Woo! Oh. All right.
That's
What
such
is
an
that
old
painting behind
reference.
you? Is that a tiger?
Yeah. Well, maybe next week
Well,
I'll
that's a
try and get the
dog, Floyd.
tiger
That's a
painting,
dog.
and then the dog is my dog, Winston Reginald the Third. In front of the painting that I have in real life. It's a painting I'd like to finish someday. Maybe as the podcast goes on, we'll see it get filled out. And next week I'll try and have that tiger painting in the background. Do you guys have anything to say for our listeners before we sign off?
No, I don't have any goals for next week's podcast, so don't expect anything.
read. What do
I'm gonna be in Orlando next week, so
are you going
we'll
to
see
be
if
on
I
the?
make it.
Okay. Do you need me to send you a book, Alex?
No, I'm all right.
Well, then find something to read.
You should read a history book.
Very
I hate
exciting.
history.
All right. Let's
Wait,
say goodbye to
what's your most exciting history, like, I guess, time period?
I live in the present. I'm doomed to repeat the past because I
Would
don't
you like
pay
to
attention.
read
let's make sure to follow CU3 Scott on all social media, my website, drawingmylifeaway.com. Thank you for listening. Have a nice day. Goodbye.
See ya.